let's make a pumpkin. So we can go ahead and get rid of this cube. That's going to be no good for us. And to make a pumpkin, well, a pumpkin is very circular and round, so it's probably best that we use a sphere to get started on this pumpkin. Now, we're going to make our lives a little bit easier. We've used the mirror modifier before, but we are going to make our lives even more easier, because if you go in the top left and you go into Edit, go to your Preferences, go to the Add-ons tab, and type in Auto, and you should see Auto Mirror. It's probably unselected for you, so just make sure you tick it so that it is selected. And then now we can utilize the Auto Mirror feature. So in the View tab here, if you press N, you'll have a new tab. You'll have the Edit tab right here. And so what we can do is we can click this little drop down, and we're not changing anything. We're having it mirror across the x-axis into the positive side, and then we're just going to hit the auto mirror option. You can press N to get rid of that tab, and it looks like nothing has happened yet. However, if we go into edit mode, you can see that half of our sphere is editable and the other half is not. That's because anything I do to one side of the sphere is going to happen to the next, or the other side. So let's get a general shape for this pumpkin. What you can do is you can grab this very top vertice of your pumpkin. I am in edit mode, I should say that, so make sure in your edit mode, and you can grab that top vertice. Now I can press G to move, however that's not really going to do me any good. So what I can do is you can click this proportional editing button, or you can just press O on your keyboard. And now when I press G to move, I've got this big sphere around. And the sphere basically allows me to move in a similar fashion all of the vertices that are in the sphere. It allows me to move them all along with the one vertex I've selected. So what you can do is you can press G, and I don't want to just move it anywhere. I'm going to press Z to lock it to the Z axis. And I'm going to kind of squish it down just like that. Similarly, I want to squish down the bottom axis, so that very center vertice. And I'm going to press G, Z, and I'm going to squish it up kind of. And I might squish it up a bit more. And I might take this top one. When you press G, you can scroll your mouse wheel up and down to make your sphere big or not. And that just means it's going to affect more vertices. So I've got a pretty big sphere. And you can see I've kind of got that squished pumpkin look. The bottom I'm not really too worried about. It doesn't look too pretty, but the top is pretty good. Cool. Now we're going to use a new tool we haven't used. We're going to use the knife tool. So if you press K on your keyboard, you should be brought to the knife. So what are we going to do with this knife tool? Well, I'm going to go straight to head-on mode, like this. I'm going to press K for my knife tool. I am still in edit mode. And I'm going to use this knife to cut out my pumpkin as if I was actually carving it. So the knife tool likes to lock onto your vertices. So notice how you have a red box around your little green selector when you're on a vertice. It is always a good idea to start on a vertice. So I'm going to start cutting out the mouth of this pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern. And I'm going to start here. So I'm going to click left, and then I'm going to click on either an edge or another vertice. I can click on the face, but sometimes it's best to just work with the edges. So for example, I might click down to this one, and then I might click over here, and then I might click all the way down here on this edge, and then I might click up here, and then I might click down here, and I might click here. And then once you get to the center of your pumpkin, click on somewhere, click the center, and then go straight down. So maybe to like this vertice right here. And then kind of make your jaggedy mouth going back upwards, just clicking, clicking. And then get back to your start point, which is a bit hard for me to see. Like that. So once you've done a full loop and you're back at your starting point, press enter. And you should have a section cut out. Well, it's not cut out yet, but you should have your knife that's cut some new faces into your mesh. Then with your face select, so this option up here, you can hold shift and start clicking the inside of your pumpkin's mouth. So these pieces that you just cut out. And it's a bit annoying because you kind of have to make sure you're getting all of your pieces. So this one, this one, this one, and look at this nasty one right here. Once you have your mouth selected, press X, and we're going to delete the faces. And we kind of get something that looks like this. If you're not happy, you can just Control Z and do it again. I don't think I am particularly thrilled with this cutout, but you know what? That's the way it is. It's not bad. It's not terrible. It's a little too... you know what? I dig it. Let's keep going. All right, so you've got your mouth. Now back into my face view. I'm going to press K and use my knife. And I'm going to cut some eyes out. And I might try to make a fancy little eye here, since my mouth isn't doing me any justice. There's my loop. Press enter. And I've got some new faces that I can hold shift and select. And delete. All right, I came back. I redeemed myself with them eyes. Those are some good eyes right there. Nice little spooky eyes. And do jack-o'-lanterns have noses? I don't know. Let's make a nose just because we can. So K for my knife. And I don't really know what to do here. Let's do like a little kind of one of these numbers. There's my loop. Press enter. And click XF. That's pretty decent. Those eyes and that nose is pretty good. The mouth I could do without, but I redeemed the pumpkin there. Cool. All right, this is looking pretty good. Let's try to make it more realistic now. So let's add well, I should ask you guys. I want to give some thickness to this pumpkin so it's not just paper thin. What do you think we could do to that? And hopefully you said, well, Mr. B, that's easy. What a stupid question. Let's add a solidify modifier. So we can go ahead and do this, and we can turn the thickness up to whatever you think looks pretty good. Pumpkins are pretty thick, so something like that. Maybe even a bit more. There we go. I like that. Cool, so this is the general shape of our pumpkin with it carved out. We can make it look a bit better, so if we go back into object mode, make sure you're in object mode, we can add a cylinder to our project, and we can scale this down, and we can press G and then Z to move it straight up, like so. And I might scale it by pressing S, and I might scale it along the Z so it kind of sticks out a bit more. And maybe it's just a bit too, something like that. The little stalk of the pumpkin. Well, we can go ahead and make this stalk look a bit better. So once you have your cylinder located, hopefully in the center of your pumpkin, you can go into edit mode. And this time with edge select, we can maybe hold shift and select, I don't know, like every fourth or fifth edge. Doesn't have to be exact. In fact, if it's not exact, it might look better. It might look more realistic. And then once you have those 6 or 7 edges selected, you can scale. Whoops. Oh, we got to turn this off. Proportional editing. We're done with that. So press O or make sure that little button's turned off. You can scale by pressing S, and you can go Shift Z so that you are not scaling in the Z axis, but you are scaling in just the Y and the X. And you can kind of bring those edges in, give it a little bit of a shape, like so. And we can be really cheeky with this stalk. We can add, well, let's do this first. Let's choose face select, and let's make the top face, let's scale it just a little smaller, just like that. And then we can add a loop cut by going Control R. And let's scroll our mouse wheel up 1 so that we have 2 loop cuts. So I'm going to press left, and then I'm going to press right. And you can you can scale these down a little bit so that it kind of tightens up. So just a little bit, just something like that. And then all this detail here, let's do one more thing. Let's choose the top face again, and we can press R to rotate it, and we could maybe just kind of rotate it a bit, and then press G to kind of move it just so it's not so perfect. There we go. I'm going to scale it down just a bit. I think it looks a little better. Nice. All right. Here is the pumpkin. And my favorite part about Blender is adding some color. So let's go ahead, let's go back into object mode. And let's turn on our shading. And we've got two objects here. We've got the orange pumpkin and we've got the stalk. So click your pumpkin. Hopefully you know how to add color by now. In the material properties, let's add a new one. And let's just choose a nice orange. Like that. Let's click the top cylinder, the top stalk. Let's add a new color. Let's make this one green, except we're going to make it like a dark green. Something like that. You might want to check that your stalk is not protruding through the pumpkin. So what do I mean by that? Make sure that it is not sticking inside of your pumpkin like so. Make sure that it's staying on top, but also make sure that it's not floating in space. So make sure it's attached, but not sticking through. I'm going to select both of these objects. So holding shift, I can click the pumpkin and then I can click the top. And I'm going to move these, G to grab and move, and then Z. And I'm just going to move it above the axis, just above that red line. Cool. Just so it's sitting on the ground. And I'm going to add a floor. So I'm going to add a mesh and I'm going to add a plane and I'm just going to scale it nice and big. Now I can select this option to see how this pumpkin is going to look when it is rendered. And it's looking a bit sad. This render is looking a bit sad. So what can I do to make this a little more spooky? Well, you should have one light in your scene by default if you have not deleted it. And what we can do with this light is let's give it a spooky color. I'm going to go red. You can do whatever color you want. You can kind of make it look menacing. And maybe this light is just a bit too bright, so I can change the power of this light. Let's go maybe 100. Yeah, that's too dark. 300. And I'm going to move this light kind of behind, a little closer, kind of behind. I like the shadows always look good when you're trying to make something a little scary. So I got a nice big shadow from my pumpkin. The problem is I can't see my pumpkin. So what you can do is you can go Shift A to add. And not a mesh, we can add an actual light source. So if I add a point light to my project, you can see it's spawning right there. Well, what I can do is I can press G to move it, Z on my x-axis, and I can pull that light up so that it's sitting inside my pumpkin. Like that. There we go. And we can give this light inside our pumpkin a color. We could go... Ooh. I use green all the time. I wanted to go green again. Maybe I should switch it up. Maybe like purple. Purple's not really scary though. And I can change the power of this light. So I'm actually going to crank this up. Let's try like 100. That's pretty good. Let's try like 500. Yeah, 400. Maybe I'll go green. Yeah, I'm going to go green again. Who would have thought? And we're almost done. I'm actually going to click on the plane, and I'm going to give the plane a color. I don't want it to be white. Maybe I'll go black. Kind of like that. And what we can do to really enhance our rendering is, we haven't taken a look at this, but if you go up into the render properties, so this tab, we can add some ambient occlusion. We can add some bloom. Oh, look at that. That's really nice. Screen space reflections. I don't know. Pretty much anything you check off here is going to make your stuff look better, but those three are good. There we go. And to really set the scene, I am going to click on my plane. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate. And I'm going to move this plane on the y-axis back there. I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis. And if you hold Control, you can actually rotate it to 90 degrees in the top left corner there. See if I can do that again. See how it says the rotation in the top left? And I can bring this forward like so. And then I can Shift D to duplicate this one. Except this time I'm going to move it right here. I'm going to rotate it along the z-axis, 90 degrees up in the top left. And move it along the x. There we go. And then finally, my render image, which is this right now, which ain't that bad, but I'm going to move my camera. So I'm going to press N to bring up this tab. View. Lock camera to view. And now when I press 0 on my keyboard to go to my camera, or you can click this button, I am moving my camera so I can get a nice shot. I'm done moving, so I'm going to uncheck that, press N to get rid of that tab. And there's my rendered image. Not bad, eh? Pretty cool. Don't submit this, though. Don't give me your rendered picture. Give me your full Blender if you are to submit it. Nice.